Hey everyone, my name is James, and the other night I was flicking through an old notebook and I actually stumbled across an idea that I wrote down in 2016. This idea was pretty simple, and it was actually a follow-up to a video I made called the Top 5 Famous Weapons in Terraria. You see, in that video, I was trying to list all of the weapons I thought were the most symbolic with Terraria, trying to put my mind into the mind of somebody who has not played the game yet, maybe has a friend of a friend, and I was trying to list all of the weapons that they might actually know, so therefore the most famous weapons in Terraria. So the idea that I actually wrote down was the top 5 famous bosses in the game, and I actually completely forgot that I wrote it down, but I think it's a really good idea, and I want to make it today. So that's why in today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 famous bosses in Terraria. Let's see how right I can get this.
5.
So, starting off in the number 5 spot is Skeletron. Skeletron was at one point the final boss in Terraria, and I think that gives it a little bit of a legacy of its own. It's also got a very simplistic design, because when you look at it from the outside, it's simply just a floating skeleton head. It also has a little bit of a backstory too. You activate an old man, you release him of his curse, you kill him, and then you get to go into the dungeon. So, if you're listening to people talk about Terraria, that's probably the only bit of story you can actually latch onto. When you look at Terraria merchandise, they actually used his head as a big plush toy, and his face actually appeared on the original printing of the special edition, PC edition of Terraria. So, very iconic, but I guess in a way, also very forgetful, because a skeleton head is iconic, but it's also appearing in a lot of other games.
4.
Number 4 on my list is the Eater of Worlds. Now, as you can tell so far in this video, I've actually listed 2 of the original 3 bosses in Terraria, and I do think that helps with actually giving these bosses a legacy and associating them with Terraria. The Eater of Worlds is very famous in my opinion because not a lot of games actually have a big giant worm boss. The only other game I can think of off the top of my head is The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, but other than that, most games don't feature a big giant worm trying to kill you. It actually appeared on multiple versions of Terraria when it comes to actually printing the physical editions, and I think it's just so famous because Terraria is actually known for its worms, or at least it was in the original edition. You had all these worms that would burrow out of the ground and try and attack you, and like I say, not many games do that, and I think that made it very famous.
3.
Number 3 on this list is the Wall of Flesh, and I think this is so famous because it's such a unique design. No other game around has a boss that's even close to the Wall of Flesh, and it also came in an update that was extremely large for Terraria. The 1.1 update is very famous now because not a lot of games actually got giant content patches like that for free. Terraria was kind of a pioneer in a way for actually dishing out so much free content. The Wall of Flesh is the symbolism of going into hard mode, and for a lot of people it's a big challenge to actually overcome, and that's why I feel like a lot of people have probably talked about this boss. I know when talking to people about Terraria that don't actually play, they go, Terraria, that's the game with the big wall of flesh, right? Yeah, a lot of people have mentioned it to me, and I think it deserves this spot on the list.
2.
So number 2 on this list is the Moon Lord. I don't think anybody mentions Terraria anymore without mentioning the Moon Lord. The Moon Lord is now the final boss in Terraria, and the reason why that's so significant is because this boss was actually intended to be the final boss in Terraria. When it came to Skeletron or Golem or Duke Fishron, all of those were a placeholder for something bigger. The Moon Lord was talked about for years and years before it was actually finally added in Terraria 1.3, and I really do feel like it is one of the most symbolic bosses associated with the game now. People love to talk about theories when it comes to this boss. People want to know where the actual Cthulhu is. Is this actually his brother? Is it called Steve, like Senex once said, I believe? I don't actually know. So, I think that makes it so famous, and I think it will always be famous for that, because it literally is such a unique design. It comes at a really great point in the game, right at the end, and I feel like that leaves you with a big impact, and people talk about stuff like that. People talk about overcoming these giant challenges, and when you have something that is literally called the final boss, that is a big challenge you want to talk about to other people, and I think it's word of mouth that made that one just so famous.
1.
So, in the number 1 spot, I don't think this video would be complete without Turkor the Ungrateful. Turkor the Ungrateful is a Thanksgiving-themed boss exclusive to the mobile edition of Terraria. And my god, this thing is very... No, right, okay. So, we're actually going to do the Eye of Cthulhu. The Eye of Cthulhu, without a doubt, is the most famous boss in Terraria for very simple reasons. It was the first boss that you can actually find in Terraria. It's pretty much on every single edition of the physical release of the game, and it's a very iconic design. When you see an eyeball now, I think of the Eye of Cthulhu. Who thinks about having an eyeball open up with a bunch of teeth? Not many people think about that. It also has the little demon eyes to go along with it, and that's very iconic when it comes to Terraria. And people talk about stuff like that. When they first played Terraria and on their first night they got swarmed by a bunch of eyeballs. And I think the Eye of Cthulhu is without a doubt the most famous boss in Terraria by far. Now, the reason I was so excited to make this video from 2016 is because I was really looking forward to reading your comments. I think this could be a really great video for actually discussing the most famous bosses in Terraria, and I feel like a lot of you will have different ideas to mine. Maybe it's different bosses completely, or maybe it's a different ranking altogether, but please leave me a comment down below if you disagree or agree. I would love to chat with you. So, that's about it for today's top 5 video. Thank you all for watching. If you do want to see more of these, make sure to click that subscribe button. We're about to hit 500,000 Terrarians, can you believe that? And we're hoping to do it by the next Terraria update. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.